hospitality industry had been hung out to dry. It didn't make a lot of sense to me that you could have however many thousands of people at the football, but you could only have one person per 4 square metres in the venue and you couldn't stand up to drink. Those in government and those who want to be in government, I want to make sure that they're educated on how badly small business is getting squeezed. We worked out that your voice actually matters, that you can make change happen, but you do have to get the attention of the people in power. But any tax that comes in, you're stuck with it forever, right? Treasury doesn't let it go. We need a brave politician or a brave government that has a mandate to put forward real tax reform. They're not going to want to unless we make them, but...
Well, welcome to Business Builders. We are your hosts. I am Brenton Gowland.
And I'm Ron Tomlin.
And it's been a little while, Ron. We haven't had an episode in a while.
It has been a while, Brenton.
But we have been extremely busy.
Getting things ready just for this episode.
Well, we've actually got 4 episodes in the can at the moment that we have to edit. So we'll be rolling them out week after week after week for the next 4 weeks. And then we'll have another one on top of that. Now, what they all are is they're live sessions. So we've been running our Business Builders live events and we've been videoing them like we did with Cameron Johnson, who was 2 episodes ago. And this week we've got something really special for everyone, haven't we?
Simone Douglas.
Simone Douglas. So she came to talk with us about how to influence government. And I've got to say, it was an excellent session and I learnt a stack.
Absolutely. And great insights too that came from a terrible situation, which was COVID.
Yeah.
But the important thing is lessons were learnt. And what really comes to the fore to me is how important it is to think about why and how we want to influence government.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will share a story when we do our insights at the end of this, but I put into practice with one of my clients immediately the week after Simone's talk, because we went to see some government representatives about employment in particular, and exactly what she said happened. And we'll find out what she said in a moment, but I was blown away, and my client literally turned around to me and said, that was like word for word what Simone shared was going to happened. So really
lessons
impressed.
Learned and put into practice. Fantastic.
Yep. Before we get stuck into it, what would you say, why would we want to influence government anyway as business owners?
Well, government is there, in my opinion, to help make society more efficient, make society a better place. And they need guidance from the people who are out there in society. So it's not as though it's completely separate. It's a situation, a symbiotic relationship between the people who are governing and the people who are governed.
Yeah, and as you said, in Simone's instance, it was because COVID had created a bad situation and they needed to encourage the government to relax the rules for hospitality venues so that they could get more people in the venues. Otherwise, as we know, we all lived it, a number of venues would have gone goodbye. They would have just shut down because they weren't able to sustain themselves. So they actually turned the rule around from being you couldn't have anyone, I think it was in 4 meters squared of a person, which meant you could only have very limited amount of people in a venue. And they got the government to rescind that to 2 meters per person, which was quite amazing. But I think also the reason we would want to influence government is to create a better to help improve the business environment in which we all operate.
And I think the other thing too in all that is government has a perspective and can only have a perspective on the basis of the information it's given. So it's beholden on all of us to provide them with information from our perspectives so that they have a more complete view of what's going on. And so we have a responsibility to influence government. And I think the words that we'll hear from Simone, or the insights from Simone, provide a great way of thinking about how we go about influencing effectively.
So without any further ado, let's go to Simone Douglas at the Business Builders in-person event.
Simone, I'm not going to try and tell your whole history, but I know of you particularly from Marketing World. You've been running social media AOK in different iterations since I was probably starting out my career, because we're about the same age, but we're not going to give away the age.
Yeah, 13 years.
13 years, yeah. And so I started Nucleus about the same time. It was probably a few years before that. But I've always known of you and the work you're doing. And then you bought the Duke of Brunswick Hotel.
Yeah.
What were you thinking?
I'm not sure I was at the time. I actually found the Duke of Brunswick by accident. So I was looking for office space for what was social media AOK. And I hired I knew I was going to have to be an adult and sign a proper lease for a big amount of space. And I'm not very good at adulting. I'm very good at, I like this, it's bright, it's shiny, can I have the keys, which kind of ruins any negotiations. So I got a referral from, I think his name was Don Wills. He's got Aurora on Pirie, he owns that building. And he put me in touch with Ian Arnold, who basically negotiates leases on your behalf to save you lots of money. And so I met Ian at, it would have been 9 o'clock on a Wednesday morning. I said, this is what I need, 100 square metres. It could be more, I'll sublease it. Wouldn't mind a training room downstairs with good natural light because I'm sick of paying room hire and, a perfect word, a little bar or a cafe. I've been in hospitality and I'm tired of paying for catering for my events. His face is doing all this weird stuff, and my general manager at the time says, it's okay. She knows that you can't give her exactly what she wants. She just believes in always asking for exactly what she wants. And he's like, no, I've got what you want. It's not on the market. Are you available at 11 o'clock to come look at it? And I'm like, yeah, actually, open the diary. That was fine. He didn't say it was a pub. And so I pulled up outside the Duke of Brunswick. Slight problem, I spent my 20s fixing broken pubs for ALH Group, so it wasn't a foreign concept to me at all. So I rang my partner Alex and said, that unicorn that I was looking for? He's like, yeah. I'm like, so I found an Ubercorn, it's even better. I really need you to talk me out of it. He clearly wasn't very successful at that endeavour, and so here we are.
I like that approach.
Yeah.
So much like Cameron, you ended up, like Cameron Johnson last time, you ended up buying a business by accident.
Yes, that's exactly what happened.
Excellent. Now, and what we're here to talk about tonight is influencing government, and you then found yourself, I'm not sure how many years later it was, but you found yourself being almost like a political advocate where you got or were involved with groups of people and advocating to government, and at the time it was to get the...
1 in 4, no more.
Yeah. Look, tell us about that. How did you end up getting into a position where you were advocating to government on behalf of the hospitality industry?
Look, I'm a big believer, I get very angry when I think things are unfair, when I think that there is an injustice that needs to be rectified, but also when people who have power to fix things aren't listening to the people who are impacted by their decisions. And I very much felt at the time that the hospitality industry had been hung out to dry. They were just deemed to pay the price for COVID restrictions, and it didn't make a lot of sense to me that you could have however many thousands of people at the football, but you couldn't only have one person per 4 square metres in the venue, and you couldn't stand up to drink at the time. So Ian Horn, who headed up the AHA at the time, and Martin Hazy was heading up Business SA, and they sent me an email and said, we just want to get a couple of hospitality people together for a photo op for the Tizer. As many as possible would be great. We're going to send an email out. Can you just email a couple of people? Yeah. And I was like, well, email doesn't really work that way for those things. So I started a Facebook chat, and I just started adding people that I knew that owned cafes and restaurants and told them to add other people. And so in the space of about 30 minutes, we had about 150 people in the chat. And these are people that were worried about losing their houses. They had taken on epic amounts of credit. They weren't sure how they were going to feed their families, all business owners, and they were terrified. And so they all turned up. It was a great photo op. For those of you that remember, we made the front page of the paper, and it came out the morning of the transition committee meeting. So, and it was the first time ever that Grant Stevens decided to overrule SA Health, and he extended it to 1 in 2 instead of 1 in 4. Yeah. So we got movement. We made the front page of the paper again the next day, and it lit something in me and everybody else that was involved, that we worked out that your voice actually matters, that you can make change happen, but you do have to get the attention of the people in power to do it.
So during that COVID period, obviously that was a unique time.
Yeah.
But what did you learn about how government make decisions during that particular point in time? Because that was a unique opportunity.
Yeah, true. So I think they make decisions on two things, pressure and information. And so if you consider for a moment that most people who are in government are surrounded by minders, okay, and they go into situations that are predominantly within their control. And, it was interesting, I was having a conversation with Alexander Downer about this at the Advertiser People's Cabinet the other day. And he's like, oh, no, but we go door knocking and we do this and we do that. And I'm like, yes, but it's still a controlled situation. You're asking them about specific concerns, you're getting answers that you're looking for. So I worked out that politicians don't actually know what's going on. Should be no surprise to anybody, really. So we started doing infographics and emailing them to every sitting politician on all sides of government, comparing the number of cases in each state with the restrictions in each state. And it made it really difficult for them to ignore, and it put upward pressure on Stephen Marshall at the time and on the transition committee. And we made sure that we got lots of press.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
I can confirm what you're saying, because I remember being involved, like way back in the day. I was vice chair of Music SA, and we had a minister come to an event we put on, which was the Music Awards, and he said to me, because I was hosting him, oh, it's a pretty good thing we put on these awards because most of these people don't have a job, eh? And I went, there's been a study by Tasmanian University that music contributes $650 million a year to the South Australian economy. Did you know that? And he was like, no. Yeah. I said, how did you figure? Anyway, you get the idea. Did a complete about face, and there was one of our biggest supporters just by what he learnt on that particular night. Because the right place, right time, right opportunity. When we got together and had a chat, you said one of the biggest problems is with people influencing government is they get mad.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
And you said being able to keep calm, rational, and having a plan was the right approach. Can you talk to us about that? Because I know that there's businesses here and there's businesses that we work with that want to affect change, yeah, particularly around employment at the moment.
Yep.
So can you talk to us about your experience with that?
So it doesn't matter whether it's government or any other person that you're trying to influence. If you are emotional, it's very difficult to be heard, okay? Because the person that you're interfacing with is going to react to your emotion, not to what you're saying. That's the first point. The second point is that you really need to take all of the emotion out of it and the emotional language out of it and distill it down to dispassionate, logical facts, because you can't argue with facts and you can't argue with logic unless you put emotion around it. And if you put emotion around it, it makes it much easier for people to argue with you. So it was all about having the right fact and the right soundbite that made it difficult to argue. So a great example is one of post-transition committee meeting, a journalist asked Stephen Marshall, what do you have to say to the hospitality industry? They're advocating to allow dancing and something else. And he said, I don't take health advice from the hospitality industry. Their tills are still ringing, was what he said. And I will remember it for the rest of my life, because I have never been delivered a better soundbite to throw back at somebody than the tills still ringing. And so we had called our first press conference. Up until then, we'd just been commenting. And I had 30 hospitality operators holding their empty tills going, I'm not sure what planet you've been existing on, but our tills haven't been ringing really at all. And so it's still emotionally charged, but it's a fact. And so it's about capturing the fact. The fact was that he said that, And our fact was we weren't giving him health advice, we were giving him economic advice and trying to preserve an industry that, you know, when you take supply chain into account, probably impacts 56,000 families in our state alone. So it's not a small industry.
100%. And when you did that photo op, I remember that photo very clearly, and it was in the invite that we all got, where Simone was standing up the front of that group of, what was it, 200 people?
I think so.
Eel Street?
Oh, yeah, the very first one, yeah.
Yeah. So you talked also about the importance of having a tribe and the effect of the tribe on influencing government. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, so if I had been stood in Peel Street all by myself going, the industry is dying, the government would have just gone, there's an angry middle-aged white woman, congratulations, you have a great day, you know, let's be honest. But it was having a tribe of people. It's about, you know, and that's, you know, one of the reasons that the Business Owners Collective has come about. So because government can only pigeonhole and ignore you if it's just you. Okay, if you go cross-industry, they have to start paying attention. Okay, so they can pigeonhole the hospitality industry, then go, oh, that problem's unique to the hospitality industry. Skilled labour shortages, it's a hospitality problem. Okay, payroll tax, it's a hospitality problem. But if you say, I speak for 200 cross-industry business owners who operate across 12 different industries, here are their problems, it's much more difficult for them to go, oh yeah, but.
Yep. So we can start, like, if we're here, we can try and build momentum by getting people together.
Yeah.
But you're doing that as well with the Business Owners Collective, because not everyone might know what that is. Can you explain what that is to us?
So it's a loose association of business owners who would like a better environment for their businesses. And I say loose association because we don't charge a membership fee. There's no ongoing, you know, referral-based anything. It's literally about giving them an opportunity to be heard. Rather than having, you know, nothing against the SA Chamber or the Australian Hotels Association that I'm on the branch council. Those industry groups, their job is to advocate for the industry, and there is generally only one or two people from that group that get to the table of decision makers to give them information. So what we're proposing is to, in the lead up to the state election, which is a really good time now to actually start pushing hard for change, we're going to start inviting people to can they pass the pub test forums. So we're going to have a pub with a bunch of business owners in it, and we're going to invite either side of government or all sides of government. So it might be that we get the Shadow Minister for Business and the Minister for Business in the room.
I've learned that those shadow ministers love coming to events.
They do. They're much easier to get in the room than the incumbents, to be fair. But, you know, in Australia, once upon a time, any government had to pass the pub test. To get into government, you had to pass the pub test. It was the conversations that happened in the front bar, you know, that dictated how people chose to vote. So I just want to see those in government and those who want to be in government. I want to make sure that they're educated on how badly small business is getting squeezed at the moment from all sides. So that's the purpose of it, really.
Okay, and just two more questions before I throw it open if anyone else has got questions. You've spent a bit of time in the media come to you, right?
I do.
Now that can be scary as hell for some people, which, you know, some people might go, hey, I actually probably don't want to advocate to government or stir the nest too much just in case the cameras end up in my face, because you were talking about Stephen Marshall and his soundbite. So what advice do you have for people here about if you do start banging the drum, trying to get some attention, your cause will get the interest of the media if it's worth talking about. How do you manage the media side of things?
I think it's different for everybody. But what I would say is if you want to get into, so it's different if you don't want to get into the media. If you do want media coverage, it's very much about making yourself available You know, I will get a phone call from Channel 7 and they'll go, this story has broken, or they've announced X, Y, Z. Can you be at the pub in 30 minutes' time? Are you happy to pass comment on X, Y, and Z? And I have never said no. I have moved stuff all over. I've got up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go meet Sunrise in High Marsh Square to talk about the cost of a schnitzel and how much I actually make, or... you've got to say yes. You've got to know what their deadlines are and respect the fact that they are working to an immovable object. So if you say no, they're just going to go find someone that is available.
And your cost of making a schnitzel got a lot of airplay. So
it went
tell us about that, because if you want to get media attention, you need a hook. And Simone came up with the ultimate hook. Tell us about it.
So I got a couple of 1-star reviews for the price of our chicken Parmys at the pub, and it kind of got up my nose. So I did a very, now an accountant would probably pull it to pieces. My maths is not great, but I did a very loose calculation based on average costs of how much we charge for the chicken Parmy with salad. Take off the GST, take off the payroll tax, take off the raw labour, take off the work cover, take off the cost of the cutlery pouch with the serviette and assurance, its repairs and maintenance, etc., etc. I think I was left with like $2.10 or something at the bottom.
And that was for a schnitzel that cost $33?
Yeah. And so, you know, and that calculation would be different for every single venue in this state, because some venues have pokies, some venues don't. People have different labour models. But me, I may have, messaged one of the advertiser journalists before I posted the video and said, I'm doing this. I'm not sure if there's a story in it for you, or if it's a slow news week. What do you reckon? And he came back, he goes, can you sit on it for 24 hours? And I'm like, absolutely, I can. That's fine. And then he came back 6 hours later and said, if you could post it at 6 p.m. and if we could have a copy of the video before you post it, that would be really good. So I did, went in the Tizer at the same time that the post went out on Facebook. And then it went from the Tizer to the Australian to Sunrise. My uncle in Cairns told me it made the paper up there. He was sending photos to my mum's, radio interviews, Daily Mail UK, all sorts of things. Like if you Google Duke of Brunswick pub owner Parmy $33, you'll see it's just article after article. The hook was, so the perception is that business owners and pubs are all ex-football Ferrari drivers, pokey barons often. And I'm not, as I said before, I'm slightly overweight, middle-aged white woman who, doesn't look like she's just stepped off a runway. So I'm relatable and I'm giving them facts, and the facts are pretty ugly. So, yeah, it was interesting.
Yeah, and I heard two things there. Well, one is obviously you had the right story at the right time.
Yep.
And you tested things, because you did heaps of other things I know that didn't get viral, did they?
Yeah, we've
done that. But the other thing is you had a relationship with some people in the paper and the media.
Yeah.
Just how important is that? And how accessible are these people to normal business people?
Well, they're actually super accessible. It's just that we don't build a relationship with them before we want something from them. And if you are messaging a journalist going, I've got a great story idea, can we meet? That they get thousands of those messages.
And how do we build a relationship with these people?
Well, Antimo's a great example. Like 6, 7.
He's the gentleman who put the story out for you.
Yeah, so it's maybe 7 years ago, maybe longer. I'm like, I don't actually know what makes a good story for you guys. Can I just have coffee? I would like to understand how to approach a journalist and what makes a story a good story. He was happy to have coffee. Cameron England was always happy to have coffee. The only time people aren't happy to have coffee or whiskey or, is when you're trying to sell them something.
Not selling anyone.
A story for a journalist is you trying to sell them something. And so you really do need to earn your stripes. You need to earn your right to sell them a story, and you do that by also when they come to you and go, do you know anybody have you got anyone that would be prepared to comment on X, Y, and Z? Have you got a business owner that is struggling with payroll tax? And I go, yes, let me call them. Here's their number. I meet their deadline. I earn street cred, which means they come to me every time they have a story that they want to do, which is why I often get a bit of backlash. They're like, oh, that woman's in the paper again. Why is she always in the paper? Why is she always complaining? I'm always in the paper because...
Well, there's a cost to telling a story, isn't there?
Well, there is, yeah.
So look, coming to the end before we ask questions, last questions, Business Builders is all about helping people grow and giving out insights. If there's people here feeling powerless about, man, I got this issue, governor's doing this is happening, what advice would you have for people to turn that around, to go from being powerless to actually having a position of being able to start influencing change in government?
Yeah. So I think there's two things. Number one, you're never powerless. That's just a voice in your head that's telling you that you don't have the right to speak your story. And you really need to understand that people in government are there because we put them there and they work for us, whether they realise it or not, whether they like it or not.
Got to say it, Albanese loves that.
He does.
We've put him there.
Yeah. So that's number one. Number two, you want to start with work out what your argument is and what the solution is. So you can't live in a culture of complaint where you're whinging about the system all the time and then like, the government, the policy, the this. If you were in charge, what would you actually do? And is it realistically possible? So if we use payroll tax as an example, I don't know how many of you are stuck with payroll tax. Not my favourite thing in the world. So I took a meeting with both the local MPs in Port Adelaide and Adelaide because that's where my businesses are, and they both employ 20 South Australians, so they impact 20 families each. So facts, argument. I took meetings with them. I took meetings with, or had conversations with Andrew Kay about what he thought needed to change, business SA. And then I took a meeting with the Treasurer and the Leader of the Opposition at the time, which was David Spears, and the Shadow Minister for Tax Reform, Heidi Drongmu. I can never say her last name right, but anyway, so the point is I went to all of them with a proposal because they still have to fill the Treasury to pay for everything, right? So if I say I don't want to pay payroll tax, but they still want to build hospitals and they still want to build overpasses, underpasses, whatever it is, you have to have a solution. And so you have to be prepared to give some things away.
That's really good advice.
Yeah. So
thank you.
That's okay.
Now, anyone have any questions? We got room for 3. We'll start. We'll go this way. We'll go Peter, Gordon, and then someone else.
Yes, good evening. We were also talking to David Spears, and that was obviously a mistake looking at going there. I didn't sell him anything, it's okay. And I have to say, the Duke of Brunswick is the only pub I found that has thick and salt peculiar on draft. So
we do indeed. I'll tell Alex.
It's interesting cultivating journalists and politicians, which is what you said. 2 questions. Sorry about this, Brenton, but do you find that you continue to cultivate the same people, or do you try and spread it out? And secondly, what happened to your chicken plaza? Did more people come by it?
They did.
Did business go up?
Business went up, that's true. I think, so to pick up on your first question, if you are only ever swimming in the same fish pond, you have a problem, like in life, in business, in anything. And so you want to be consistently expanding your relationships and building new relationships. I'm in a really, I would say, enviable position at this point because the journalists find me. So there'll be, like the ABC radio called me the other day, we've seen that you had Staffy's Day Out at the Port Admiral. Can you get on radio at 3:00 and have a chat? I'm like, yes. So there's lots of different shows at the ABC. The producers have my number and it says she's in digital marketing, she's in pubs, she's a community advocate, she does So there's lots of reasons for them to call me. But again, like journalists talk to each other. And so if you're really good at telling a story and giving them sound bites and being succinct and articulate, then they tell other people to go talk to you. Oh, Simone will have an opinion on that. She'll be happy to chat. Here's her number. And I just get random phone calls. So I had a call from another journalist that published an article in The Australian, is the pub being priced out of the average Australian's pocket? And it was just, and we had that interview 6-8 weeks ago and it only got published last week or the week before. So you just need to be happy to talk to anyone, make friends with anyone, but then make sure you go connect with them on LinkedIn and they're seeing what you're posting and everything down the track, so that then you'll prompt them when they have another story that they need to run.
Gordon.
Thanks. Thanks, Simone. Interesting stuff. We've got a lot of industry associations, including one that you're working with, from the sounds of it, Business SA. I'm just wondering where what you're doing fits in with the industry association lobbying activity, and what are they perhaps not doing that they could be?
Yep. It's not that they're not doing something that they could be. I think if you think about industry associations, they've been around for a very long time, 100+ years, many of them. They have to play the long game on both sides of government. That's their job, because a good example, the Australian Hotels Association, I'm on the branch council, they've been working on reform for the Liquor Licensing Act for 10 years. Okay, so they've gone through a couple of different iterations of government in that process. There are things that they can't say because it may damage those relationships that they need to maintain. A collective, by its very definition, is to a degree faceless, so long as you have someone that's prepared to be the spokesperson, which I'm quite happy to be the irritating human. It doesn't really bother me. So I will generally say what the industry associations want to say but don't feel like they can get away with. And so by having conversations with the SA Chamber, with Tourism Industry Council of SA, with Master Builders, or all of the different associations, one of the questions I ask them is if you could say anything that you wanted, what would you say? What is the point that you need to make? So when the advertiser rang me and said, can you be the Minister for Small Business for the People's Cabinet? I'm like, sure. And then I rang Andrew Kay, I rang David Bashir, who's the president of the AHA, I rang the head of the Tourism Industry Council of SA and said, what do you think the things are that we need to focus on? Interestingly, they're lined up with most of the stuff I thought too: cost of power, tax, red tape, all of the obvious things. What works really nicely is I often say it. They can agree with what I said, they just can't say it. And so we tend to get backed in on the quotes that way.
Thanks very much tonight. It's been pretty insightful, but would you indulge me and tell me what was your proposal for the
payroll tax?
Yeah. I'm
sure,
very curious.
I'm happy to. Okay, so it was multi-pronged for starters. So first up, I said that he needed to increase the threshold because since it was increased in 2019, my raw labour costs in hospitality have been legislatively increased by 30%. So they've got bracket creep, and that's unacceptable. So I said it should be indexed and it should increase all the time. I said beyond that, if somebody takes on a business that is new or has been closed for liquidation, like the Port Admiral Hotel was, and creates 20 new jobs, that I should at least get a year to get that business to make money before I get hit with a payroll tax bill, which doesn't happen now. So I got a payroll tax bill on a business that wasn't making money, where I'd created 20 jobs and I got penalised for taking that risk. So I said, that needs to be a thing. You should give them 12 months. Or you should go, it's a new business. Are you making a profit? Then pay some tax. If you're not making a profit, I don't think that's fair. I also said that if I am contributing to training people in skills, that I shouldn't have to pay payroll tax on those people. So if I've got an apprentice chef and I'm paying for them to go to TAFE and my head chef is spending extra time training them, I think that they should get ruled out of the calculation. And the other thing that I said is if you're going to keep legislatively increasing superannuation, I don't think that should fall into the calculation either. So, super used to be, what percentage did it start at? 10%. It's going to go up again in July.
it was 9 something.
Yeah, there you go. Start at 6%. So there's going to be another 6% bracket creep there that's legislated in. What I did say to him, I said, we actually need, and I'm on record, we need proper tax reform. Okay, so payroll tax was a tax that they brought in to look after war widows forever. That's actually how it started. But any tax that comes in, you're stuck with it forever, right? Treasury doesn't let it go. So we need a brave politician or a brave government that has a mandate, which you could argue technically right now that the Albanese government, with their current margins and number of seats, is in a very safe position to put forward real tax reform. They're not going to want to unless we make them, but it's a bit like the John Howard era. Nobody wanted GST. Everyone said it was going to be a career killer and all those things, but they had enough seats, they had enough margin that it was a safe bet. It was going to be unpopular, but they could ride out the unpopularity and actually facilitate change. We need another moment like that. But it's only going to happen if we make it happen. Yeah.
Thank you, Simone. Please put your hands together for Simone.
Well, I think that was really insightful and that was fantastic. What did you think, Ron? What were your key takeaways from what Simone had to say?
Well, I like the fact that she talked about being helpful. It's interesting that when we talk about our employees or people that we lead as business builders, we often say, don't come to me with problems, come to me with solutions. And yet the way people often go to government is with problems.
100%.
And I think that's a really big insight from my perspective, is go being helpful to government, not only with your perspective, but with ideas about how the problem can be rectified or the issue can be addressed.
So on that, at the start, when we did the intro here, I was talking about the fact that I went with a client to see government a week after Simone had spoken. And we did exactly what she said. We were helpful. We came with ideas, the whole 9 yards. And the representative of government we saw turned around to us and said, do you know, it's so refreshing to have people come here and actually share ideas with us. Like, I really want to thank you. This has been great. We're going to follow this up. And they have. And when we got outside the building, my client said to me, that was amazing. That was literally word for word what Simone said. And so I really want to encourage you. It's really like a universal principle, right? When you think about us as human beings, we want to deal with people who see things from our perspective. We want people who are going to help us find solution, because when people come to us with the problems, it's just like, here we go. How are we going to fix this? Do we want to fix this? Do we have time to fix it? So really practical, common sense advice, which we probably don't think about much when we go and see government, because we think government aren't sometimes operating by the same rules the rest of us do, but they really do.
Oh, yeah.
They're people.
And I think that whole example that you've given there just goes to show how respectful that approach actually is.
Yeah. And now the last takeaway was actually all about the fact that, and this particular person we saw in government said, how many people do you think you can get behind this idea? And that again was word for word from what Simone had shared. And we're going now and starting to get people involved with the idea that I was mentioning. I can't really talk about it now, but we'll talk about it in the future if it becomes successful. But all I can say is she was spot on with the thing she was saying.
That idea that she gave, which was rally your tribe.
You got to.
Yeah, and you think about it, if someone goes to someone in government, they're beholden to listen, but it becomes so much more impactful when it's not just you saying it, when you're representing an entire group of people, or in fact an entire movement in some cases, that says this is what a number of organizations or a number of people are thinking. It's not just my perspective.
And this is why networking is so important, that we do actually build our own tribes. And this is why we're doing what we're doing with business builders. And keep your eyes open and your ears peeled. Or is that the other way around? Keep your eyes peeled and your ears open. I'm good with those sayings. But anyway, we've got some things coming up soon where we're going to actually invite people to be a part of Business Builders in a much more meaningful way. I can't say much about it yet, but we are building a tribe to have influence, and a tribe to help each other progress and grow together. So I think, again, Simone was spot on, but I would say to you, if you're not part of a tribe, if you're not getting out there and networking, and maybe you are if you're listening to us, but I would encourage you to get out there and network, because we're going to preach it. We're going to talk about the importance of it. And I think what Simone shared showed the practical importance of the fact that there is strength in numbers.
So was there any insight that you really took away from Simone's presentation?
Well, I think it was the one that shocked me the most was literally what you've already said. And when I say shocked me, I was just like, that is such common sense. And it was simply be helpful. Because I have sat in so many rooms where we've had roundtables with government and other things, and all you hear, and I'm not mocking people because these issues exist, is complaint, 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 list.
How true. And it sort of ties back into our whole approach to networking as well, which is come from the perspective of being helpful to the other person rather than what can they do for me? What can I first do for them?
Yes. Now that's enough from us for today, but if you like what you're hearing, if you want more of this, we've got more interviews coming up. We've got an exercise physiologist in the next session that we're going to be talking about. That'll be in a week or so. And this person is well worth hearing. And then we've got a CEO of a company of about 3,000 people, a global CEO based out of South Australia. So lots of good things coming up. Hit that subscribe button if you want to hear more, if you want to see more interviews. And until next time,
keep on building.